Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever wondered how a lawyer can defend someone they know is guilty? Or how they justify pushing a legal loophole to the absolute edge? Well, today, we're diving straight into that intense friction between a lawyer's personal morality and their professional duty. We'll be looking at some groundbreaking research by Trevor C.W. Farrow, and we're going to see exactly how the legal profession is being forced to fundamentally redefine itself. Let's kick things off with a pretty dramatic phrase from the research: a pact with the devil. It sounds intense, right? But it perfectly captures the ultimate fear of so many modern law students. It's this deep anxiety that to become a lawyer, you basically have to surrender your personal, political, and moral values. You know, giving up who you fundamentally are just to serve the system. And that brings us to a really foundational question. Should a professional actually do everything the law allows them to? Like, if the law permits some ruthless tactic to win a case, does that mean a lawyer automatically should use it? Or do they actually owe a duty to society too? It's a massive question, and it literally divides legal scholars right down the middle.
Let's move into Section 1, the Pact with the Devil, looking at this crisis of values.
To really understand this crisis, the researcher shares this incredibly telling anecdote about an informal seminar of 25 first-year law students. When asked if they wanted to maintain their moral self as lawyers, every single hand went up, all 25. But then they were asked if they thought the real world of practice would actually allow them to do that. The number of hands? 0. Not a single one. Even as first-year students, they already believed the profession was just going to crush their personal moral compass.
This stark reality is exactly what sparked Trevor Farrow out of Osgoode Hall Law School to really dig into this ethical disconnect. He found that literally on day one of law school, students already feel the heavy spirits of the past weighing on them, basically dictating this rigid, old-school way they're supposed to behave. So let's look at those spirits of the past in Section 2, the traditional hired gun, which is the dominant model.
For decades, the legal system has absolutely championed this model. It's known as the amoral technician, or the neutral partisan. Under this traditional rulebook, your one and only job is to fiercely advance your client's cause. That's it. You're expected to just check your personal morals at the door, remain completely neutral to the result, and leave all the tough ethical choices entirely up to the client.
You can trace these spirits of the past all the way back to Lord Brougham's famous 1820 defense of Queen Caroline. He famously declared that an advocate knows but one person in all the world, and that person is his client. That idea established a blueprint we are still using today, this concept of absolute, unqualified loyalty to the client. Now, originally, that was meant to protect individuals against the immense power of the state, but it set a very strict precedent.
And you can see it in the language, right? Proponents of this model absolutely love using aggressive militaristic terms. Lawyers are called shock troops, hired guns, soldiers of the law. We even literally dress them up in traditional costumes, like barristers' gowns and tabs, to go to battle. It's the language of total warfare. But here's the thing, fewer and fewer modern professionals actually want to live their lives as constant combatants.
Which brings us to Section 3, a profession at a crossroads, where we see these paradigms starting to shift.
See, modern lawyers are desperate to practice law in a way that actually lets them look in the mirror and, go home to their families at night feeling good. But here is the paradox we're facing. Even though the whole hired gun story is becoming super unattractive to the people actually doing the job, the industry just keeps telling it. Why? Mostly because it's terrified of change. But the pushback is definitely happening. We're seeing this major shift away from the sheltered, safe refuge of neutral partisanship and moving toward this concept of the moral lawyer. These alternative models are demanding that lawyers stop just being mere tools for their clients. Instead, they insist on integrating a lawyer's own moral perspective right into their everyday practice.
And that leads perfectly into Section 4, sustainable professionalism, a whole new discourse.
This is where we get to a completely new unifying approach: sustainable professionalism. Now, this concept flat out rejects the outdated demand for blind client loyalty. Instead, it argues that a lawyer's own moral framework, their life preferences, and their need for a balanced existence, while they aren't just acceptable, they are absolutely essential for a healthy career. Think of legal ethics kind of like a giant pie. The dominant model basically shoved the entire pie over to the client. But sustainable professionalism, it redistributes it. It recognizes that a lawyer's personal principles, the client's needs, and the wider public interest, they all require their own crucial slice of the pie. It creates a much more dynamic, healthy balance. And this isn't just about work-life balance for the lawyer either. It actively seeks to protect the wider public interest and ensure true access to justice. It acknowledges that our ethical frameworks actually need to reflect the diverse, culturally complicated world we live in today. It's about achieving those big, aspirational promises of equality.
Let's move to our final part, Section 5, the future of legal ethics, and look at this new trajectory. Drawing on Aristotle, the research points out something profound. A community doesn't just exist for the sake of living, it exists for the sake of living well. So if we view the legal field as its own community, its ultimate purpose can't simply be to just push paper and win cases at all human costs. It has to be aimed at something higher. What this means is that legal ethics demands constant, active inquiry. Lawyers really need to remain fully engaged with their own moral compass to figure out what practicing well actually looks like in the real world. The law shouldn't just be a set of loopholes to be manipulated. It's a framework that requires constant, thoughtful, ethical deliberation.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. The ghosts of the hired gun are incredibly powerful, but they definitely don't have to dictate the future. Whether you are entering the legal profession yourself, or maybe you might just need to hire a lawyer one day, ask yourself this: do we really want blind soldiers of the law, or do we want professionals who embrace a truly sustainable moral practice? Thanks so much for watching this explainer.